The investigation starts here, in Domremy-la-Pucelle, 250 kilometers east of Paris. Around 1428, this family home, the church, and these streets are the setting for Joan's first and most enduring mystery. It is here that Joan makes a choice, from which she steps out of obscurity and into legend. She leaves home at the age of just 16.
Making the decision to set out almost on her own from her family village at a point when many people would never spend a night away from home is quite a remarkable thing for anyone to do in this period, but certainly for a girl like Joan of Arc.
Coming from a rural family, at this time, it's a radical choice, sparked by an extraordinary claim. Joan says that since the age of 13 she has been hearing voices in her head. And she believes these voices come directly from God. Some modern experts argue it shows Joan was a schizophrenic and insane. There is no historical record to suggest that Joan was ever classed as mad. As a child, she was apparently able to function normally within society. Dr. Farias believes the voices could be thoughts buried deep in her unconscious mind.
From a purely psychological point of view, we can think that she had a kind of personality disposition which allowed her to perceive things from her unconscious, which she interpreted as voices.
Because of the Christian beliefs of her time, she reasons that these voices are messages from God. This kind of perception is in fact not unusual in the 15th century.
During Joan of Arc's lifetime, there are possibly dozens of visionaries or prophets at large in France. Not 2 or 3, not hundreds. It's something that's very unusual, but definitely not unique either.
And many of these visionaries are female. Seen as a divine messenger, Joan could have been easily accepted. Her possible faculty for accessing the unconscious and her deep religious fervor could explain her claims to hear the voice of God. But it is the extraordinary actions they inspire that sets Joan apart. It is these deeds that are seen by some as miraculous and create the legend of Joan of Arc. And they take place at the very heart of a raging military campaign. France is divided. On the one side, England, ally with a powerful French noble, the Duke of Burgundy. On the other, the blood heir to the French throne, Charles VII, who does not want to lose his inheritance. The country is split, with the English and Burgundians holding the north and the French the south. The frontier between them is the Loire River. The English are slowly pushing south into French territory. This is the stage onto which Joan of Arc walks, negotiating her way into the royal court of Charles VII in March 1429.
The voices and her determination would have intrigued the king. When Joan presents herself to the court, it is the relief of Orleans that she claims as her mission.
Orleans is the front line of the English-French conflict. The English have laid siege for 7 months. Some historians speculate that Charles VII permits Joan to go to Orleans with reinforcements because he is eager to accept anything that might help. And she is welcomed by those militia because her presence is seen as divine legitimacy of the French cause. The legend of Joan as the great armored soldier is born. Joan is said to have achieved a miracle here in Orleans by ending the crushing siege and forcing the English into retreat. Military historian Kelly de Vries reveals that the reality is very, very different.
The English don't feel like they have enough forces to go up against the French, and the French don't try to go up against the English stronghold.
De Vries's interpretation lies in the detailed analysis of the events leading up to Joan's arrival.
So the English arrive at the Loire. Most of the cities that they come up against, they simply surrender, but the Orléanais do not.
The English do not expect the citizens of Orléans to fight back. So much so that they only bring a small force of around 4,000 men to annex the city. With this limited manpower, the English leader, Thomas Montague, focuses their attack on the southern fort of Turel. Behind lies the only bridge across the Loire River into the city. It is here that the Orléanais make an extraordinary bold move. They destroy the bridge, cutting off the English advance.
When the Orléanais put up their fight, the English have to besiege them.
But the English do not have sufficient men to surround the whole city and stop supplies going in and out. On top of that, they suffer a major setback. Thomas Montague is killed in a bizarre incident during the early days of the siege.
It's kind of a gruesome story. He goes to a window and a French cannonball hits the window and it destroys his face. It kills him and removes the effective leadership on the English side.
Unlike the legendary story, Joan does not approach Orléans when the city is on the brink of destruction at the hands of the English. The English can't win. The Orléanais can't fight them off. It is a stalemate. Joan's arrival with more troops tips the balance in favor of the Orléanais and the French. They attack, striking at the English in the fort of Turel head on, and succeed in driving them to defeat. Rather than a miraculous victory, de Vries believes the English were no great threat.
Everybody wants to believe that the English could have swept through the rest of France, and Joan of Arc is the determining factor, and they're not doing so. But I don't think they can win.
While the victory at Orléans may be less than extraordinary, a reputed miracle takes place on the battlefield that cannot be so easily explained. Joan is hit by an arrow, which penetrates 15 centimeters into her neck and shoulder region.
There was tons of blood.
It was thought that Joan might have been killed by this.
An apparent fatal wound in battle. And yet, just a short time later, she is back in the action. A teenage girl claims she hears voices, words only she can hear. Her name is Joan of Arc. Joan embarks on her holy quest to defeat the English and see the French king crowned. Divine messenger, witch, or warrior, capable of transcending extreme pain and suffering. How could this 19-year-old girl have accomplished all this?
On the 8th of May 1429, the town of Orléans in France erupted in celebration. For 7 long months it had been under siege by the English, but now, after just 4 days of fighting, the town had been liberated, and the people of Orléans knew they had witnessed a miracle. story of their liberation was astonishing enough, but what confirmed it as a miracle was the identity of their liberator. She was a peasant girl, and she was just 17. Her name was Joan. She was a truly extraordinary figure, a female warrior in an age that believed women couldn't fight, let alone lead an army. To understand Joan's story, we need to explore a world where God and the devil are real. Today, we're more aware than we've been, perhaps for centuries, of the power of faith to drive people to do extraordinary things, for good or ill. And in a world where God's will is at work, anything is possible.